My daughter-in-law screamed, "You're a filthy, soulless parasite, I hope you die soon," when I refused her a $3. 1 million house. My son stood silent beside her. I just left, and the next day an anonymous envelope arrived. Inside were documents that would change everything.
Before we continue, comment where you're watching from and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching.
But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I got here. The house smelled like lemon polish when I woke up that morning. I'd spent the previous day cleaning every surface, the way I always did before Stephen and Kimberly visited. 2 years since Harold died, and I still caught myself setting out his favorite coffee mug sometimes. The blue one with the chip on the handle that he refused to throw away. I was 68 years old and living alone in a 4-bedroom house that felt bigger every day. The master bedroom where Harold and I had slept for 43 years. Stephen's old room, still decorated with his high school baseball trophies. The guest room that nobody used anymore. And Harold's office, which I hadn't touched since the funeral. The dinner invitation had come from Kimberly 3 days earlier. She'd called while I was watering the tomato plants Harold had planted our last spring together. Her voice had that bright, artificial quality it always carried when she wanted something. "Linda, Stephen and I would love to have you over for dinner Thursday night. Just family, nothing fancy." Nothing fancy meant I should dress nicely, but not too nicely. It meant I should bring wine, but not expensive wine. It meant I should arrive exactly on time, not early like I used to when Stephen first married her, back when I still thought showing up early to help was being considerate rather than intrusive. I'd learned these rules slowly over the 8 years since their wedding. Small corrections delivered with a smile. "Oh, Linda, you didn't need to bring anything," but the disappointment in her eyes if I showed up empty-handed. "Linda, you look comfortable." Translation: "You should have tried harder with your appearance." I chose my navy dress, the one Stephen had complimented once 4 years ago. I spent 20 minutes on my makeup, covering the age spots on my cheeks, the dark circles that had become permanent after Harold passed. I brought a $30 bottle of Chardonnay from the grocery store. Their house sat in Magnolia Ridge, the new development where every home looked like it cost more than most people made in a decade. Stephen's Tesla was in the driveway next to Kimberly's Range Rover. I'd helped with the down payment on this house as a wedding gift. Kimberly had hugged me and called me the best mother-in-law in the world. That was before she started calling me Linda instead of Mom. Stephen opened the door. My boy, 42 years old now, with gray starting at his temples. He'd put on weight since the wedding. Stress weight around his middle that he carried differently than Harold had. "Hey, Mom." He hugged me, and for just a second, I felt like I had my son back. Then Kimberly appeared behind him. "Linda, come in, come in. Let me take that wine." "Oh, Chardonnay. How sweet." She was wearing cream-colored pants that probably cost more than my mortgage payment and a silk blouse that showed off the yoga body she maintained with the personal trainer she'd mentioned more times than I could count. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a way that looked effortless, but probably took an hour. The house smelled like catered food. Not cooking, not the warmth of a kitchen being used, but the professional smell of meals prepared elsewhere and reheated. She led me to their dining room, where the table was set with plates I recognized from their wedding registry. Plates I'd contributed to buying. "Stephen, pour your mother some wine. I'm sure she needs it after the drive." I lived 15 minutes away. We sat down, and Kimberly served salmon and asparagus and roasted potatoes that were perfectly crisp on the outside. She talked about her Pilates class, about the vacation they were planning to Turks and Caicos, about the new restaurant downtown that had a 6-month waiting list, but she knew the owner. Stephen nodded along, adding comments here and there. I asked questions and made appropriate sounds of interest. This was the dance we'd perfected over the years. I played the audience to Kimberly's performance of A Perfect Life. It was during dessert, some elaborate chocolate thing from a French bakery, that the real reason for the dinner emerged. "Linda, we wanted to talk to you about something exciting." Kimberly leaned forward, her eyes bright. "Stephen and I have been looking at investment properties." Stephen shifted in his seat. "It's a good time to buy, Mom. The market is strong. There's this property in Harbor Point," Kimberly continued. "It's absolutely stunning. Waterfront, 5 bedrooms, completely renovated. The kind of place that will only increase in value." I knew where this was going. I'd known since the invitation arrived. "It's listed at $3, $1 million, Stephen said, looking at his plate rather than at me. "And we thought," Kimberly said, reaching across the table to touch my hand, "that this could be a wonderful family investment. You could help us with a down payment, and we'd handle the mortgage. Eventually, it would be part of Stephen's inheritance anyway." There it was, eventually, as in after I died. "I see," I said quietly. "Think about it, Linda. You're sitting on all that equity in your house. Harold left you very comfortable. This would be a smart way to diversify, and you'd be helping your family at the same time. Your family, not our family. Not her family. Your family, as if she was doing me a favor by allowing me to participate. How much would you need for the down payment? I asked. Kimberly's face brightened. $620,000. We could structure it as a loan if you'd prefer, but honestly, between family, does it really need to be that formal? $620,000. More than half of what I had in savings. The money Harold and I had carefully put away over decades. The money that was supposed to last me the rest of my life. I'll need to think about it, I said. The temperature in the room dropped instantly. Kimberly's hand withdrew from mine. Stephen's jaw tightened. Think about it? Kimberly's voice had lost its brightness. Linda, this is a time-sensitive opportunity. Properties like this don't stay on the market long. I understand, but it's a significant amount of money. I need to consider my own financial security. Your financial security? Kimberly laughed, but there was no humor in it. Linda, you have a paid-off house worth at least $800,000. You have Harold's life insurance, his retirement accounts, his investments. You're living alone in a house meant for a family, spending money on nobody but yourself. Kimberly! Stephen's voice held a warning, but it was weak. No, Stephen. Your mother needs to understand. We're not asking her to give us the money. We're asking her to invest in her own family's future, or is she planning to take it all to the grave with her? I felt my chest tighten. This wasn't about investment. This was about control, about expectation, about the belief that what was mine was somehow theirs by right. I'm sorry, I said, standing up slowly, but I can't help with this. The words hung in the air for a moment. Then Kimberly exploded. She stood so fast her chair scraped against the hardwood floor. Her face flushed red, her eyes wild with something that looked like rage, but also like panic. You selfish bitch. The words came out low and venomous. You're sitting on millions while we're drowning, and you can't even help your own son? Kimberly, please. Stephen reached for her arm, but she shook him off. No, Stephen. I'm done being polite to this woman. She's a filthy, soulless parasite. She's been living off Harold's money for 2 years, contributing nothing, helping nobody. Just sitting in that big, empty house, hoarding everything like some kind of dragon. I felt tears starting, but refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of her. I hope you die soon, Kimberly hissed. I really do, because you're just taking up space that could be used by people who actually matter. I looked at Stephen, my son, my baby who I'd rocked to sleep and nursed through illnesses and cheered for at every baseball game. He was looking at the floor, his hands clenched on the edge of the table. He didn't tell her to stop. He didn't defend me. He just sat there, silent. That silence hurt more than Kimberly's words. I picked up my purse and walked to the door. Neither of them followed me. I heard Kimberly crying, Stephen murmuring something soothing to her. The victim now, needing comfort after verbally eviscerating his mother. I drove home in a daze. The house was dark when I arrived. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat in Harold's chair in the living room, the one that still smelled faintly like his cologne, and let the tears come. I must have fallen asleep there because I woke to early morning light filtering through the curtains. My neck was stiff, my eyes swollen. The clock on the mantel read 6:47 a.m. That's when I heard it, the soft thud of something landing on my front porch. I walked to the door, my body aching from sleeping in the chair. On the welcome mat was a manila envelope. No address, no stamp, no marking of any kind. Just my name written in block letters. Linda Morrison. I picked it up and carried it inside, my hands trembling slightly. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where Harold and I had shared breakfast every morning for 40 years, and opened the envelope. Inside were documents, bank statements, emails, photographs, and a single typed note on plain white paper. Mrs. Morrison, you need to see what they've been doing. Check your joint account with Stephen, the one you set up for his emergencies. Check it carefully. A friend. My heart started pounding. Stephen and I had opened that account when he graduated college. It was supposed to be for genuine emergencies, medical bills, unexpected crises. I'd seeded it with $50,000 and told him to only touch it if he absolutely needed to. I hadn't checked it in years. I trusted him. With shaking hands, I opened my laptop and logged into the bank website. It took me 3 tries to remember the password. When the account finally loaded, I stared at the screen, not understanding what I was seeing. The balance was $3,247. I scrolled through the transaction history, withdrawals, dozens of them over the past 2 years. 5,000 here, 8,000 there, 3,000, 12,000. Steady, regular withdrawals that had drained almost the entire account. I looked back at the documents in the envelope. Bank statements showing where that money had gone. To credit card payments. To spa charges under Kimberly's name. To a jewelry store. To luxury retailers I'd never heard of. My emergency fund had been paying for Kimberly's lifestyle. There were emails, too, printed conversations between Kimberly and Stephen. I started reading, and with each line, something inside me cracked a little more. This was only the beginning. But as I sat in my kitchen, surrounded by evidence of my son's betrayal, I realized that the woman who had driven home crying last night was gone. Someone else was waking up in her place. I spent 3 hours at that kitchen table reading every document in the envelope. The morning sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the floor, but I couldn't move. Each page revealed another layer of deception I'd been too trusting to see. The emails were the worst part. Not because of what they said, but because of the casualness of it all. Kimberly writing to Stephen about pulling another couple thousand from your mom's account for the Aruba trip. Stephen responding, she never checks it anyway. There was no guilt in those words, no hesitation, just matter-of-fact theft from someone who loved them. One email made my hands shake so badly I had to set it down. Kimberly had written it 6 months ago. Your mom mentioned wanting to visit that spa in Sedona for her birthday. I told her it was too expensive and she should save her money. Then I used $4,000 from the emergency account for my facial treatments. She'll never know, and honestly, I need it more than she does. She's practically a hermit anyway. I had wanted to go to that spa. It was something Harold and I had planned to do together before he got sick. After he died, I'd mentioned it once to Stephen, who'd encouraged me. You should do something nice for yourself, Mom. Then Kimberly had talked me out of it, convinced me I was being frivolous, that I should be more careful with money at my age. And the whole time, she'd been planning to use my own money to pamper herself. I remembered that conversation now. We'd been having coffee at her house, and she'd been so sympathetic, so understanding. Linda, I know you miss Harold terribly, but spending money won't bring him back. You need to think practically about your future. I'd felt guilty after that. Selfish for even wanting something for myself. There were photographs, too. Kimberly at expensive restaurants with friends, champagne glasses raised in toast. Kimberly showing off a new designer handbag to someone at what looked like a country club. Kimberly and Stephen on vacation, jet skiing, snorkeling, living a life funded partly by money they'd stolen from me. But it was the final document that made me physically sick. It was a screenshot of a text conversation between Kimberly and someone named Ashley. The messages were from 3 weeks ago. Kimberly, Stephen's mom is being difficult about the Harbor Point house. We need that property. Ashley, how much are you asking for? Kimberly, $620K for the down payment. But honestly, we need more. Stephen's business has been slower than we expected, and we're maxed out everywhere else. Ashley, what if she says no? Kimberly, she won't. I've been working on this for months. She's lonely and desperate for family connection. She'll do anything to feel needed. Ashley, and if she still refuses? Kimberly, then we move to Plan B. Stephen has power of attorney for medical decisions if she becomes incapacitated. We have that doctor friend who owes us a favor. A few documented incidents of confusion, forgetfulness, maybe a small accident, and we can make a case for conservatorship. Ashley, that seems extreme. Kimberly, she's sitting on almost $2 million in assets and she's not using it. We're drowning in debt. Sometimes you have to do what's necessary for your family's survival. I read those words 3 times, each time hoping I'd misunderstood. But there was no misunderstanding. My daughter-in-law had been planning to have me declared mentally incompetent if I didn't hand over my money willingly. The room started spinning. I made it to the bathroom just in time to throw up the coffee I'd drunk earlier. I knelt on the cold tile floor, my body shaking, and for the first time since Harold died, I felt truly alone, not lonely. Alone. There's a difference. Lonely is missing someone who loved you. Alone is realizing that the person you thought loved you has been plotting against you. I don't know how long I stayed there. Eventually, I pulled myself up, washed my face, and looked at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were red, my skin pale. I looked every one of my 68 years and then some, But I also looked different, harder somehow. The woman who had driven home crying last night, the woman who had cleaned her house and worried about bringing the right wine, she wasn't looking back at me anymore. I walked back to the kitchen and picked up the note that had come with the documents. A friend, it said. Who? Who would have access to these private emails and text messages? Who would care enough to warn me? My phone rang, making me jump. Stephen's name appeared on the screen. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Mom. His voice sounded strained. About last night. Kimberly is really upset. She feels like you don't consider us family. I almost laughed. She feels like I don't consider you family. She's been under a lot of stress with the business and everything. She didn't mean what she said. Which part? The part where she called me a parasite? Or the part where she hoped I'd die soon? Silence on the other end. Mom, please. We need this house. It's not just about wanting it. We need it. The business hasn't been doing well, and we've got some debt we need to handle. This investment property could turn everything around for us. By using my money, by investing together as a family, you'd be securing your own future too. When I inherit eventually, this property would be worth so much more. When I inherit, not if. When. As if my death was just a matter of scheduling. Stephen, do you remember the emergency account we opened when you graduated college? Another pause. Longer this time. What about it? When was the last time you checked the balance? I don't know. Why? Because I just did. There's $3,200 left of the $50,000 I put in there. That's almost $47,000 withdrawn over the past 2 years. The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Mom, I can explain that. I'm sure you can. Just like you can explain why that money went to credit card bills and spa treatments and vacations while you were telling me you were doing well. We had expenses. The house, Kimberly's car. We needed to maintain a certain lifestyle for the business. Networking, entertaining clients. You stole from me, Stephen. You and Kimberly have been stealing from me for 2 years. And then last night she called me a parasite for not giving you more. We didn't steal. That account was meant for emergencies. We had emergencies. Designer handbags are emergencies? Trips to Aruba? How do you know about that? His voice changed, became sharp. Have you been spying on us? I almost laughed again. He'd stolen nearly $50,000 from me, and he was offended that I'd found out about it. Someone sent me documentation, bank statements, emails, text messages, everything. Who? I don't know. But I know what you and Kimberly have been planning. I know about Plan B, about having me declared incompetent if I didn't give you what you wanted. The silence this time was absolute. I could hear his breathing on the other end, quick and shallow. Mom, that's not. We never actually. That was just Kimberly talking. She gets anxious about money and says things she doesn't mean. She had a specific plan, Stephen. A doctor who owed her a favor, documented incidents, conservatorship. She was planning to take everything from me. I wouldn't have let it go that far, but you knew about it. The realization hit me like cold water. You knew she was talking about it and you didn't tell me. You didn't warn me. You just stayed quiet, like you stayed quiet last night when she was screaming at me. Mom, please, we can fix this. We can sit down and talk about everything. I'll make Kimberly apologize. We'll figure out a repayment plan for the emergency account. Just please don't do anything rash. Rash? Like what? Like protecting myself from people who want to steal from me? We're family. You can't just cut us off over money. But it wasn't about money. It had never been about money. It was about the fact that my son had watched his wife call me a parasite and wished for my death, and his only response was to stay silent. It was about the fact that he'd been stealing from me for 2 years without a second thought. It was about the fact that when caught, his concern wasn't for having hurt me, but for making sure I didn't do anything that might affect him. I need to go, I said. Mom, wait. We need to talk about this. No, Stephen, we don't. Not right now. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from fear or sadness. It was from anger. Pure, clarifying anger that burned away the fog of confusion and hurt I'd been living in. I looked back at the documents spread across my kitchen table. Someone had sent me these for a reason. Someone wanted me to know the truth. I picked up the note again, studying the handwriting. Block letters, careful and deliberate. The paper was ordinary printer paper, the kind you could buy anywhere. But there was something about the way my name was written, the slight flourish on the M, the particular slant of the letters. I'd seen handwriting like this before, recently. My mind went back to last month, to Stephen and Kimberly's anniversary party. I'd been in their kitchen, looking for a serving spoon, when I'd seen a thank you note on the counter. The handwriting had that same careful quality, that same slight flourish. The note had been signed Ashley, Kimberly's sister. The same Ashley from the text messages. The one who'd asked, "What if she says no? Why would Ashley send me these documents? What did she have to gain from exposing her own sister's plans?" My phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. "Did you get the envelope? There's more you need to know. Meet me at Riverside Park, East Bench, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Come alone, Ashley." I stared at the message for a long time. This could be a trap, another manipulation, but it could also be the key to understanding what was really happening, to protecting myself from whatever else they had planned. I texted back, "I'll be there." Outside, the morning had turned into afternoon. The house felt different now, like it was holding its breath, waiting to see what I would do next. I walked through the rooms, seeing them with new eyes, the home Harold and I had built, the life we'd created, the future we'd planned. None of it had included being betrayed by our own son. I stopped in Harold's office, the room I hadn't entered since his funeral. His desk sat exactly as he'd left it, his reading glasses folded on top of a book about woodworking. His coffee mug, the blue one with the chip, sat beside his computer. I picked up the mug, running my finger over the chip Harold had refused to fix. "It's got character," he'd always said. "Just like us." "I don't know what to do," I whispered to the empty room. "I don't know how to fix this." But that was the thing. Maybe it couldn't be fixed. Maybe some things, once broken, were meant to stay broken. And maybe that was okay. I set the mug down and opened Harold's desk drawer. Inside was our marriage certificate, photos from our wedding, and beneath them, a folder I didn't recognize. I pulled it out and opened it. Inside was Harold's will, and a letter addressed to me in his handwriting. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. The letter was dated 3 weeks before Harold died. His handwriting was shakier than I remembered, the cancer already stealing his strength. But the words were clear. "My dearest Linda, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're alone in ways I never wanted you to be. I'm writing this because there are things I need you to know, things I noticed in my final months that I didn't have the heart to tell you while I was still here. Stephen has changed, or maybe he's always been this way and I didn't want to see it. Kimberly has brought out something in him that worries me. I've watched her manipulate conversations, watched her slowly separate him from you, from us. The way she talks about money, about what we owe them, about their future, it frightens me. I've made arrangements. My will is ironclad. Everything goes to you, not to Stephen directly. There are provisions for him after you're gone, but while you're alive, it's all yours to do with as you see fit. My lawyer, Robert Chen, has specific instructions. If anyone tries to contest this or pressure you, call him immediately. I'm also leaving you this advice. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If someone makes you feel small or guilty for protecting yourself, they're manipulating you. You spent 40 years taking care of me, raising our son, building our life together. You deserve peace and security, not guilt and obligation. And Linda, if Stephen ever makes you choose between your safety and his approval, choose yourself. I know that goes against everything you believe about family, about motherhood. But a son who would put you in that position isn't acting like family. I love you. I'm sorry I won't be there to protect you, but you're stronger than you think. You always have been. Forever yours, Harold. I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Harold had seen it. He'd known something was wrong, had tried to protect me even after death. The guilt I'd been carrying for 2 years, the feeling that I should be doing more for Stephen, that I was being selfish by keeping Harold's money for myself, it had all been manufactured by Kimberly, and Harold had known. I folded the letter carefully and tucked it back into the folder, then pulled out the copy of Harold's will. He was right. It was specific, detailed, and left no room for interpretation. Everything came to me. Stephen would inherit only after I died, and even then, there were conditions about how it would be distributed. My phone rang again. Stephen. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again immediately. And again. On the 4th call, I answered. What? Mom, we need to talk. Can I come over? No, please, this is important. Kimberly wants to apologize in person. She feels terrible about what she said. I don't care how Kimberly feels. Mom, don't be like this. We're family. We can work through this. Can we? Because I just found a letter from your father. He wrote it before he died. He knew Stephen. He knew what Kimberly was doing, and he tried to warn me. Silence. What did the letter say? That I should trust my instincts. That if someone makes me feel guilty for protecting myself, they're manipulating me. That I should choose my own safety over anyone's approval. Even yours. Dad was sick when he wrote that. He wasn't thinking clearly. The casual dismissal of Harold's concerns made something snap inside me. Your father's mind was perfectly clear until the day he died. He was sick, not stupid. He saw what I was too close to see. Which was what exactly? That my wife is some kind of villain? That I'm a bad son? We're struggling financially, and we asked for help. That doesn't make us criminals. You stole from me, Stephen, for 2 years. And when I wouldn't give you more, Kimberly called me a parasite and told me she hoped I'd die. You stood there and said nothing. I was in shock. I didn't know what to say. You could have said stop. You could have told her she was wrong. You could have defended me, but you didn't. You just stood there. And then afterwards, you comforted her. She was the victim. Not me. Her. She was upset. So was I. But you didn't care about that, did you? The silence stretched between us. I could hear him breathing. Could imagine him standing in that expensive house I'd helped him buy, surrounded by things purchased with money he'd taken from me. I think we need some space, I said finally. I need time to think about everything. How much time? I don't know. As long as it takes. Mom, please, don't shut me out. We can fix this. Can we? Because I don't think you understand what you've broken. This isn't about the money, Stephen. It's about trust. It's about respect. It's about the fact that you watched your wife wish for my death and you didn't defend me. I do understand. I made mistakes. I let Kimberly handle things I should have paid attention to. But I love you, Mom. You're my mother. I don't want to lose you over this. The words sounded right, but they felt empty, rehearsed, like something Kimberly had coached him to say. I need to go. Don't call me again unless I call you first. Mom? I hung up and turned off my phone. The house felt too quiet, too empty. For 2 years, I'd been telling myself that this was just adjustment, that the loneliness after Harold died was normal, that Stephen's distance was because he had his own life now. But it hadn't been adjustment. It had been abandonment. Calculated, deliberate abandonment designed to make me vulnerable and dependent. I walked through the house room by room. Stephen's old bedroom, still decorated the way it had been when he left for college. Baseball trophies on the shelf, posters on the walls, his high school yearbooks lined up on the bookshelf. I'd kept it as a shrine to a boy who didn't exist anymore. When had he changed? Or had he always been capable of this, and I'd been too close to see it? I thought back through the years, looking for signs I'd missed. Small moments that at the time seemed like nothing but now felt significant. The way he'd borrowed money in college and been vague about paying it back until Harold had to ask directly. The way he'd distanced himself from high school friends who hadn't been successful enough. The way he'd talked about his business clients, dividing them into categories of useful and useless. I'd made excuses for all of it. He was young, ambitious, focused on his career. But maybe Harold had been right. Maybe these weren't phases or flaws. Maybe this was who Stephen really was, and Kimberly hadn't changed him. She'd just given him permission to stop pretending. The doorbell rang, making me jump. I looked through the window and saw a car I didn't recognize in the driveway. A woman stood on my porch, young, maybe 35, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked nervous. I opened the door a crack. Yes? Mrs. Morrison? I'm Ashley, Kimberly's sister. I know we're not supposed to meet until tomorrow, but I couldn't wait. Can I come in? I studied her face. She had Kimberly's features, but softer somehow, less sharp. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying. How do I know this isn't another trick? You don't, but I'm the one who sent you those documents. And there's more you need to know before you meet with Stephen or Kimberly again. Please, just give me 10 minutes. Against my better judgment, I opened the door and let her in. Ashley sat on the edge of my couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She looked around the room, taking in the photos on the walls, the comfortable furniture, the lived-in quality of a house that had been a home for decades. This is nice, she said quietly. Kimberly always talked about this place like it was falling apart, like you were living in some kind of dump. But it's not. It's lovely. Why are you here, Ashley? She took a deep breath. Because my sister is planning to destroy you, and I can't watch it happen again. Again? Our grandmother. 5 years ago. Kimberly convinced her to sign over power of attorney, said she'd help manage her finances. Within a year, Grandma Ruth was in a nursing home she hated, all her money was gone, and Kimberly had bought a new car. Grandma Ruth died 6 months later. The doctors said her heart gave out, but I think she died of a broken heart. I felt cold. And you didn't stop her? I tried. But I was younger then and I didn't have proof. Kimberly is very good at covering her tracks. She made it look like Grandma Ruth was spending the money on her own care. It was only after Grandma died that I found documents showing where the money really went. Why didn't you report her? Ashley's eyes filled with tears. Because she's my sister. Because my parents begged me not to cause family drama. Because I was scared and guilty and I didn't know what to do. So I stayed quiet. And I've regretted it every day since. And now? Now she's doing it again. But worse this time. She's been planning this for months. The house request was just the opening move. If you'd said yes, she would have kept asking for more until there was nothing left. And when you said no, she moved to plan B. The conservatorship. Ashley nodded. She has everything lined up. A doctor who's willing to sign off on cognitive decline. She's been documenting incidents, creating a pattern. She's even got Stephen convinced that you're starting to forget things, that you need help managing your affairs. I'm not forgetting anything. I know, but she's very convincing. She's been working on Stephen for over a year, planting seeds, making him see problems that don't exist. By the time she's done, he'll genuinely believe you need to be protected from yourself. I thought about the spa in Sedona, about how Kimberly had talked me out of going. How many other times had she planted doubt in my mind, made me question my own judgment? Why are you telling me this now? Because I found out she's accelerating the timeline. She told me yesterday that she's filing the conservatorship paperwork next week. She's going to claim you're a danger to yourself, that you're making irrational financial decisions, refusing necessary help, showing signs of paranoia. That's insane. It doesn't matter. She has documentation. She has a doctor willing to testify. And she has Stephen, who will corroborate everything she says because he believes he's protecting you. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden Harold and I had planted together. The tomatoes were starting to ripen. He'd never get to taste them. What do you want from me, Ashley? Nothing. I just want to stop her before she does to you what she did to Grandma Ruth. I want to stop carrying guilt for staying silent. And I want to finally do the right thing, even if it means my family never speaks to me again. I turned to look at her. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. I have proof, she said. Text messages where she talks about her plans, emails to the doctor, financial records showing she's already drained your emergency account. Everything you need to protect yourself. You already sent me documents. That was just the beginning. There's more. Bank records, voice recordings, everything. I've been collecting evidence for months. Voice recordings? Ashley pulled out her phone. Kimberly likes to talk when she's had wine. I started recording our conversations 3 months ago. She has no idea. She pressed play. Kimberly's voice filled my living room, slurred but clear. Stephen's mom is so pathetic. She just sits in that big house, clinging to memories of a dead man. She's wasting all that money when we need it, when we deserve it. We're young, we're building a life. What's she doing? Waiting to die? Ashley's voice responded. Maybe she wants to enjoy her retirement. Enjoy it? She doesn't do anything. She doesn't travel, doesn't go out, just sits there like a sad little mouse. Meanwhile, we're struggling, and she acts like giving us money would be some huge sacrifice. It's not even her money. It's Harold's money. Stephen's father's money. By rights, it should go to Stephen. Maybe she wants to keep it for herself. Then we'll take it. One way or another. She's old, she's alone, and she's weak. This will be easier than I thought. Ashley stopped the recording. There are hours more like that. She talks about you like you're an obstacle to be removed. Not a person, not family, just something in her way. I sat down heavily. The woman on that recording, the casual cruelty in her voice, the complete absence of empathy or remorse. This was who my son had married. This was who he'd chosen over me. Does Stephen know how she really feels? I don't know. She's careful around him, but I think on some level he must. You can't live with someone and not know who they really are. Unless you didn't want to know. Unless it was easier to believe the comfortable lies than face the ugly truth. Ashley stood up. I should go. I've put everything on a flash drive for you. It's in the envelope I'm leaving on your table. Use it however you need to. Just please, protect yourself. Don't let her do to you what she did to Grandma Ruth. After she left, I sat in the quiet house with the flash drive in my hand. Tomorrow I was supposed to meet her at the park, but she'd come tonight instead. Why? What had changed? Was this real or just another layer of manipulation? I was 68 years old, and I couldn't trust my own judgment anymore. That's what they'd done to me. Made me doubt everything, even my ability to tell truth from lies. The sun was setting, casting orange light through the windows. I thought about Harold's letter, about his faith in my strength, about his instruction to trust my instincts. My instinct said Ashley was telling the truth. My instinct said I was in real danger. My instinct said it was time to stop being the victim and start being the survivor. I picked up my phone and called the number on Harold's will. Robert Chen, his attorney. It was after hours, but I left a message. Mr. Chen, this is Linda Morrison, Harold's widow. I need to see you as soon as possible. It's urgent. It's about my son. Robert Chen called me back at 7 in the morning. I hadn't slept. I'd spent the entire night going through the files on Ashley's flash drive. Each document another piece of evidence that my son and daughter-in-law had been systematically planning to take control of my life. Mrs. Morrison, I got your message. Can you be at my office in an hour? I was dressed and ready before he finished the sentence. Robert Chen's office was in a modern building downtown, all glass and steel. Harold had chosen him 20 years ago because he was thorough, ethical, and didn't waste time on pleasantries. When I walked into his office, he stood and shook my hand, his grip firm and reassuring. Sit down, Linda. Tell me everything. So I did. The dinner, Kimberly's explosion, the anonymous envelope, Ashley's visit, the recordings, the plans for conservatorship. I laid the flash drive on his desk and watched his expression grow darker as he plugged it in and began reviewing the files. He was quiet for a long time, clicking through documents, listening to audio clips, his jaw tightening with each new piece of evidence. Finally, he sat back in his chair and looked at me. This is bad, but it's also exactly what we need. Need for what? To protect you. Harold suspected something like this might happen. That's why he made his will so specific, so airtight. But these documents go beyond anything he imagined. Your daughter-in-law isn't just after money. She's planning to strip you of your autonomy entirely. Can she really do that? Can someone be declared incompetent just because their family says so? It's harder than most people think, but it's not impossible. If she has a complicit doctor in your son's testimony, if she can document a pattern of behavior that suggests cognitive decline, she could get a temporary conservatorship. Once that's in place, the burden shifts to you to prove you're competent. It's expensive, it's humiliating, and it can take months. And in the meantime, she'd have control of your finances, your medical decisions, where you live, everything. The reality of how close I'd come to losing everything hit me like a wave. If Ashley hadn't sent those documents, if I hadn't found Harold's letter, I might have walked right into Kimberly's trap thinking I needed to prove I was a good mother, a good grandmother, a good family member. What do I do? Robert leaned forward. First, we document everything. I'll need copies of all these files for our records. Second, we revoke any and all powers of attorney you may have granted Stephen, medical or otherwise. I never granted him medical power of attorney. Are you sure? Think carefully. Did you sign any documents at his request? Anything Kimberly might have asked you to sign as a formality? I thought back. 3 months ago, Kimberly had brought over some papers. She'd said they were advance directives, that everyone should have them at my age. Living will, do not resuscitate orders, things like that. I'd signed them without reading carefully because Stephen was there, and he'd said it was smart planning. Oh God. What? 3 months ago, Kimberly brought papers. She said they were advance directives. Stephen told me it was just standard estate planning. Robert's expression hardened. Do you have copies? No. Kimberly said she'd file them with my doctor and give me copies later. She never did. That's what I thought. She probably buried a power of attorney clause in there. We need to file a formal revocation immediately and send copies to every medical facility and financial institution you use. We also need to put alerts on all your accounts. No changes without your physical presence and proper identification. He made notes rapidly. Third, we need to consider a restraining order. These recordings show clear intent to harm you financially and emotionally. A restraining order against my own son? A restraining order against anyone who poses a threat to your safety and well-being. That includes your son if he's complicit in this scheme. The words hit hard. My son. My baby. The boy I'd rocked to sleep and taught to ride a bike and sent off to college with tears in my eyes. How had we gotten here? There's something else, Robert said. We should consider filing a police report about the stolen funds from your emergency account. That's not a civil matter. That's theft. If I report Stephen to the police, that's it. There's no coming back from that. Linda, there may be no coming back from this anyway. You need to protect yourself. These people have shown you who they are. Believe them. I thought about Harold's letter. Choose yourself, even when it's hard. Okay, what's the first step? Robert picked up his phone. The first step is we make you bulletproof. Over the next 3 hours, Robert Chen turned my life into a fortress. We filed formal revocations of any powers of attorney. We placed fraud alerts on all my financial accounts. We sent certified letters to my doctor's office, the hospital, and every financial institution I used, stating that only I could make changes to my accounts and that Stephen Morrison no longer had any authority to act on my behalf. We documented everything on the flash drive and created multiple backup copies. Robert assured me that if Kimberly tried to file for conservatorship, we had more than enough evidence to not only block it, but potentially file criminal charges against her. One more thing, Robert said as I prepared to leave. You should consider changing your will. But Harold's will controls his assets. But you have assets of your own now. Bank accounts, the house, everything Harold left you has become yours. If something happens to you under current law, it would all go to Stephen as your sole heir. I hadn't thought about that. If I died now, even after everything they'd done, Stephen would inherit everything, including the house they'd demanded I buy for them. What do you suggest? Create a will that reflects your current wishes. You can leave Stephen something if you want, but you can also put conditions on it, or leave it to charity, or create a trust that he can't access until certain criteria are met. The point is, you control your own legacy. I need to think about that. Of course. But Linda, think about it soon. These people have shown they're willing to go to extreme lengths. Don't give them any opening. I left Robert's office feeling both stronger and more exhausted than I'd ever felt in my life. It was barely noon, but I felt like I'd lived an entire year in the past 24 hours. My phone had 17 missed calls, 15 from Stephen, 2 from a number I didn't recognize. There were text messages, too. Stephen, Mom, please answer. We need to talk about this. Stephen, Kimberly is very upset. She wants to apologize properly. Stephen, I don't understand why you're shutting us out. Stephen, this is getting ridiculous. You can't ignore us forever. Stephen, fine. If you won't talk to us, we'll have to take other steps to protect you from yourself. That last message was sent an hour ago. Protect me from myself. The language was already shifting, already building the narrative that I was the problem, that I needed protection. The unknown number had left voicemails. I listened to them in my car. Mrs. Morrison, this is Dr. Patricia Holloway. I'm a colleague of your son's wife. I'd like to schedule a time to talk with you about some concerns that have been raised about your well-being. Please call me back at your earliest convenience. The doctor, Kimberly's doctor friend, already making contact, already starting to build her case. I deleted the voicemail and blocked the number. When I got home, there was a car parked in front of my house. Stephen's Tesla. He was sitting on my front porch steps, waiting. I almost drove past, almost kept going. But I stopped. We were going to have this conversation eventually. It might as well be now. Stephen stood as I pulled into the driveway. He looked terrible. His hair was uncombed, his clothes wrinkled. He hadn't shaved. This wasn't the polished businessman who'd opened the door 2 nights ago. This was someone unraveling. Mom, thank God. I've been calling you all morning. I know, I saw. Why didn't you answer? Because I didn't want to talk to you. He flinched like I'd slapped him. Can we please go inside and talk about this like adults? We can talk out here. Mom, please. I'm your son. Are you? Because the Stephen I raised wouldn't have stolen from me. He wouldn't have stood silent while his wife called me a parasite. He wouldn't have plotted to have me declared incompetent. I never plotted anything. That was all Kimberly. I didn't know about most of it until you told me. But you knew about some of it. You knew you were taking money from the emergency account. You knew Kimberly was pushing for the house. You knew she resented me. And you did nothing. I was trying to keep the peace, trying to balance being a husband and a son. You chose. You chose her over me every single time, and now you're surprised that I'm protecting myself? Stephen ran his hands through his hair. I made mistakes. I see that now. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through our issues as a family. Stephen, Kimberly was planning to have me declared mentally incompetent. She has a doctor lined up to sign off on it. She's been documenting fake incidents of confusion and memory loss. She was going to strip me of my autonomy and take control of everything Harold left me. That's not a mistake. That's calculated abuse. She wouldn't do that. I have recordings of her saying exactly that. Hours of recordings. Your sister-in-law, Ashley, has been documenting everything for months. The color drained from Stephen's face. Ashley? Why would Ashley? Because Kimberly did this before. To their grandmother. Ashley watched Kimberly drain their grandmother's accounts and put her in a nursing home she hated. She watched their grandmother die heartbroken and alone, and she's not going to let it happen again. Stephen sat down heavily on the porch steps. No, that's not. Kimberly said her grandmother needed professional care, that she couldn't manage on her own. Is that what Kimberly told you? The same way she told you I was forgetting things, becoming confused, needed protection from myself? He put his head in his hands. I don't know what to believe anymore. Believe the evidence. Believe the bank statements showing money stolen from my account. Believe the recordings of your wife talking about me like I'm an obstacle to be removed. Believe your own memories of standing silent while she screamed at me. She was upset. She told me she hoped I'd die soon, Stephen, and you said nothing. Nothing. The silence stretched between us. I could see him struggling, trying to reconcile the version of events Kimberly had built for him with the reality I was presenting. What do you want me to do? He asked finally. I want you to tell me the truth. Did you know about the conservatorship plan? He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, she mentioned it once. A few months ago. She said if you became unable to manage your affairs, it might be necessary. I thought she meant if you got sick or had an accident. I didn't think she was planning it. But you didn't ask questions. You didn't tell me. You just went along with it. I didn't think it was real. I thought she was just anxious about the future, planning for worst-case scenarios. And the emergency account? The $50,000? His face flushed. We needed the money. The business was struggling. Kimberly said it was your account too, that you'd want to help if you knew how bad things were. But you didn't tell me how bad things were. You just took the money and lied about being successful. I was ashamed. I didn't want you to think I was failing. So instead you stole from me and let your wife call me a parasite for not giving you more. Stephen looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that might have been genuine remorse. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I got in over my head, and I let Kimberly convince me that taking the money was okay, because it was family money. But she kept wanting more, and I kept going along with it because I was scared of losing everything. The business, the house, her. What about losing me? I never thought that was possible. You're my mother. You've always been there. I took you for granted, and I let Kimberly treat you badly because it was easier than standing up to her. At least he was being honest now. Maybe too late, but honest. Stephen, I've spent this morning with Harold's lawyer. I've revoked any powers of attorney, placed alerts on all my accounts, and documented everything Kimberly has done. If she tries to file for conservatorship, I'll have her arrested for fraud and elder abuse. Mom, please. That will destroy her. She was planning to destroy me. Why should I care what happens to her? Because I love her. Because she's my wife. And there it was. After everything, his loyalty was still to her. Then you've made your choice, I said quietly. I hope it was worth it. I walked past him to my front door. Mom, wait. I turned back. I don't want to lose you, he said, and his voice cracked. You already have. I didn't hear from Stephen for 3 days. 3 days of silence that felt both liberating and devastating. I kept my phone on, not because I expected him to call, but because I needed to document any attempts at contact. Robert Chen had been clear about that. Everything needed to be documented now. On the 4th day, Ashley called. Mrs. Morrison, Kimberly knows I gave you the files. She's been calling me non-stop, threatening me, trying to find out what I told you. I'm sorry. I never meant to drag you into this. I dragged myself into it when I decided to finally do the right thing. But you need to know, she's planning something. She told me she's not going to let you ruin her life. Those were her exact words. My stomach tightened. What kind of something? I don't know, but she's desperate, and desperate people do dangerous things. Please be careful. Lock your doors. Maybe stay with a friend for a few days. After we hung up, I walked through the house checking windows and locks. The house that had felt like a sanctuary for 40 years suddenly felt vulnerable. Every shadow seemed threatening. Every sound made me jump. That evening, around 8, someone knocked on my door. Not the doorbell. Actual knocking, hard and insistent. I looked through the peephole and saw Kimberly standing on my porch. She was alone, dressed in jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back. She looked nothing like the polished woman who'd served me salmon and demanded my money 4 days ago. She looked wild, unpredictable. Linda, I know you're in there. I can see the lights on. We need to talk. I didn't answer. Please, just give me 5 minutes. I need to explain everything. Stephen doesn't know I'm here. Something in her voice made me open the door, but I kept the chain lock engaged. Say what you need to say from there. She looked surprised that I'd opened the door at all. Can I come in? This isn't something I want to discuss on your front porch. No. You have 5 minutes. Start talking. Her expression shifted, the vulnerability disappearing like a mask being removed. Fine. You want to do this the hard way? Let's do it the hard way. You need to back off, Linda. Drop whatever you're planning with your lawyer. Stop poisoning my husband against me. And give us the money we need for that house. Or what? Or I'll make your life a living nightmare. I'll file for conservatorship anyway. I'll make sure every doctor in this city knows you're mentally unstable. I'll tell everyone you're an abusive mother who abandoned your son when he needed you most. I'll destroy your reputation so thoroughly that no one will believe anything you say. I have recordings of you, Kimberly. Hours of recordings where you talk about drugging me, having me declared incompetent, stealing everything I have. You really think threatening me is going to work? Her face went pale. Ashley, that little bitch. She's been recording me? For months. She watched you destroy your grandmother. She's not going to let you destroy me, too. Kimberly's hands clenched into fists. My grandmother was senile. She needed care. Everything I did was for her own good. Just like everything you're doing to me is for my own good. You don't deserve what Harold left you. You didn't earn it. You were just there, being a wife, doing the bare minimum while he built everything. That money should go to people who can actually use it, who have their whole lives ahead of them. People like you. Yes, like me, like Stephen. We're young, we're struggling, we're trying to build something. What are you doing? Sitting in this house, surrounded by memories of a dead man wasting away. It's pathetic. The cruelty in her voice was casual, effortless. This wasn't anger talking. This was who she really was. Get off my property, I said quietly. Or what? You'll call the police? Go ahead. I'll tell them you're having delusions, that you've been calling me at all hours making accusations. I'll tell them you're showing signs of dementia and paranoia. Who do you think they'll believe? A concerned daughter-in-law trying to help her aging mother-in-law? Or a confused old woman living alone? I think they'll believe the evidence. The bank statements showing theft. The recordings of you planning to commit fraud. The testimony of your own sister about what you did to your grandmother. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across her face. Stephen will never testify against me. He loves me, does he? Or does he love the version of yourself you've shown him? The one that doesn't exist. I'm his wife. We're building a life together. You're just the old woman who's in our way. Then let me be very clear. I'm not in your way anymore. I'm removing myself completely from your life. You and Stephen can build whatever life you want, but you'll do it without my money, without my help, and without my presence. Consider yourself completely cut off. You can't do that. You're his mother. I'm a mother who's been stolen from, lied to, and abused. Being related doesn't give you the right to destroy me. Now get off my property before I call the police. Kimberly's face twisted into something ugly. This isn't over. You think you've won because you have some recordings? I'll find a way around that. I always do. One way or another, I'll get what I'm owed. You're owed nothing. She turned to leave, then stopped and looked back. You know what Stephen told me tonight? He said if it came down to choosing between you and me, he'd choose me. He said you were being unreasonable and cruel, that you were trying to destroy our marriage because you couldn't stand to see him happy. He's already made his choice, Linda. You've already lost him. The words were designed to hurt, and they did. But I'd already grieved for the son I'd lost. The man who stood silent while his wife abused me wasn't someone I recognized anymore. Then I guess we're done here, I said, and closed the door. I watched through the window as Kimberly got in her car and drove away, tires squealing. My hands were shaking. I picked up my phone and called Robert Chen. She just showed up at my house making threats. I need you to file for a restraining order. Tonight. I'm on it. Did you record the conversation? I hadn't even thought to record it. No, that's okay. Write down everything she said while it's fresh in your memory. Every word you can remember. We'll file first thing in the morning. After I hung up, I sat down at the kitchen table and wrote out every word of the conversation. Kimberly's threats, her admission that she'd manipulated doctors, her complete lack of remorse for what she'd done to her grandmother. I was so focused on writing that I almost missed the sound of a car pulling into my driveway. When I looked up, Stephen was getting out of his Tesla. He looked frantic, running to the door and pounding on it. Mom, open up. Kimberly just called me crying. She said you threatened her. Please, let me in. We need to talk about this. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. Your wife showed up here uninvited and threatened me. She said she'd destroy my reputation and make my life a nightmare if I didn't give her money. I told her to leave. That's what happened. That's not what she said. She said you screamed at her, called her terrible names, threatened to have her arrested. And you believe her version over mine. I don't know what to believe anymore. You've both been saying things about each other. How am I supposed to know who's telling the truth? Stephen, I have recordings of your wife planning to commit fraud against me. I have bank statements showing she stole from me. I have testimony from her own sister about similar abuse she committed against their grandmother. What does Kimberly have? Her word against mine. And you're still not sure who to believe? He looked down at his feet. She's my wife. And I'm your mother. The woman who raised you, who loved you unconditionally for 42 years. The woman your father trusted enough to leave everything to. But that means nothing compared to her word? It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. You're choosing to believe her because believing me would mean admitting you married someone capable of elder abuse. It would mean admitting you've been complicit in stealing from me. It would mean taking responsibility for your choices. And that's too hard. So you're going to keep believing her lies because they're more comfortable than my truth. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Stephen. What's not fair is being called a parasite by my daughter-in-law while my son stands silent. What's not fair is having $50,000 stolen from me while being told I'm selfish for not giving more. What's not fair is being threatened in my own home by a woman who married into this family and decided I was an obstacle to be removed. She's not like that. You don't know her like I do. I know exactly what she is. The question is, why don't you? Stephen's face crumpled. Because if you're right about her, then what does that say about me? That I'm stupid? That I'm a terrible son? That I chose wrong? It says you're human. It says you fell in love with someone who showed you one face and hid another. It says you made mistakes. That's forgivable, Stephen. What's not forgivable is continuing to choose her even after you know the truth. I don't know the truth. I just know that two people I care about hate each other, and I'm stuck in the middle. You're not stuck in the middle. You put yourself there by refusing to see what was right in front of you. Your wife is abusive. She's manipulative. She's cruel. And until you can admit that, there's nothing more to say between us. So that's it? You're just cutting me off? I'm your only child. You cut me off the moment you chose to believe her over me. I'm just making it official. Tears were streaming down his face now. I love you, Mom. Please don't do this. I love you too, but I love myself more, and I'm finally choosing to protect myself instead of sacrificing my well-being for your comfort. Dad would want us to work this out. The mention of Harold hurt more than anything else he could have said. Your father wrote me a letter before he died. He told me that if you ever made me choose between my safety and your approval, I should choose myself. He saw what I was too close to see. He knew Kimberly was dangerous, and he trusted me to be strong enough to protect myself, even from you. Stephen stood there, swaying slightly like I'd physically struck him. He knew? Dad knew about Kimberly? He suspected. He didn't have proof, but he saw enough to worry. Why do you think his will was structured the way it was? He was trying to protect me from exactly this situation. I can't believe he didn't trust me. He loved you, but he loved me more. And he knew that sometimes love means protecting someone from themselves. Stephen wiped his face with his sleeve. What happens now? Now you go home to your wife. You decide what kind of man you want to be. And I move forward with my life without you in it, unless you're willing to see the truth and act on it. And if I choose her, then you've made your choice, and you'll have to live with the consequences. He stood there for a long moment, looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time, or maybe for the last time. Then he turned and walked back to his car. I watched him drive away, and something inside me that had been holding on finally let go. The son I'd raised, the boy who'd laughed at my jokes and hugged me goodnight, was gone. Maybe he'd never really existed. Maybe I'd loved an idea of him rather than the reality. Either way, that chapter of my life was over. I went back inside and locked the door behind me. The house felt different now. Not empty, but peaceful. For the first time in 2 years, I felt like I could breathe. Now, I'm curious about you who listened to my story. Ashley. What would you do if you were in my place? Kimberly is furious. Have you ever been through something similar? I'm fine. Comment better than fine. And meanwhile, I'm leaving on the first time in a very long time. Two other stories that are channel favorites. 6 months later, they will definitely I stood in the kitchen of my new house. Not the four-bedroom watching home where Harold and I had raised Stephen, but a smaller place across town. 2 bedrooms, a garden that got perfect morning sun, and no memories of betrayal lurking in the corners. The restraining order had been granted without contest. Kimberly had apparently decided that fighting it would draw attention she didn't want. Stephen had called once after that, asking me to drop it. I'd hung up without answering. The house in Magnolia Ridge, the one I'd helped them buy, had gone into foreclosure. Without my money propping up their lifestyle, their debt had finally caught up with them. Ashley had told me they were getting divorced. Stephen had finally seen the credit card statements, the secret accounts, the web of lies Kimberly had built. Too late, but at least he'd seen it. He'd tried to contact me 3 times after that. Each time I'd let it go to voicemail. Each time the message was the same. He was sorry. He'd been blind. He wanted to make things right. He missed me. I'd saved the messages but never responded. Maybe someday I would. Maybe someday he'd do the work necessary to understand what he'd done, to take real responsibility instead of just apologizing when his life fell apart. But that was his journey, not mine. Mine had led here, to this sunny kitchen where I was making coffee for Ashley and her husband Tom. They'd become unexpected friends over these months. Ashley was pregnant now, glowing with a kind of happiness that came from finally standing up for what was right. "This place is perfect for you," Ashley said, looking around the kitchen. "Much better than that big house. Harold and I loved that house, but it was time to let it go. Too many rooms full of things I didn't need anymore. I'd sold most of the furniture, kept only what mattered. Harold's blue coffee mug, our wedding photos, the letter he'd written me. Everything else had been just stuff, weighing me down." The doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see a woman about my age standing on the porch, holding a casserole dish. "That's probably Joan," I said. "My neighbor. She's been bringing me food since I moved in. I think she's worried I don't eat properly." Joan bustled in with the casserole and a wide smile. "Linda, I hope you don't mind. I made extra lasagna and thought you might enjoy some." "Oh, hello, Ashley." This was my life now. Neighbors who cared, friends who showed up. A community I'd chosen rather than one I'd been born into. After Joan left, Ashley's expression grew serious. "Have you heard? Kimberly's being investigated for what she did to our grandmother. I finally filed a formal complaint with the police. They found evidence she'd been forging Grandma Ruth's signature, taking money that was supposed to go to her care. How do you feel about that?" Relieved, guilty, both. "She's my sister, but what she did was wrong. She needs to face consequences or she'll just do it again to someone else." I understood that feeling, the guilt that came from holding family accountable, but also the freedom that came from choosing truth over comfort. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Mom, it's Stephen. I know you blocked me. I just wanted you to know I signed the divorce papers today. You were right about everything. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I understand if you never want to see me again, but I needed you to know that I finally see the truth. I love you." I showed the message to Ashley. What should I do? What do you want to do? That was the question, wasn't it? Not what I should do, not what was expected, but what I actually wanted. I don't know. Part of me wants to forgive him, to rebuild our relationship. But another part of me knows that even if he's sorry now, he still chose her over me when it mattered. He still stood silent while she abused me. Can you really come back from that? I don't know, Ashley said honestly. But I do know you don't have to decide right now. You can take all the time you need, years even, or forever. Your healing doesn't require his redemption. After Ashley left, I sat in my garden with Harold's letter. I'd read it so many times the paper was soft and worn, but the words still gave me strength. Choose yourself. I'd spent 68 years putting everyone else first. Harold, Stephen, family, duty, obligation. And where had it gotten me? To a place where my own son's wife felt entitled to my money, my autonomy, my life. But I'd chosen myself in the end. I'd protected myself. I'd walked away from people who hurt me, even when they were family, even when it was hard. The garden was starting to bloom. Tomatoes that I'd planted from the seeds of Harold's last crop. A small vegetable patch. Flowers that attracted butterflies. This was mine. Not our garden, not the family garden. Mine. My phone buzzed again. Stephen, I know I don't deserve a response, but if you ever want to talk, I'm here. I'm getting help. Real help. Therapy. I'm trying to understand how I let things get so bad. How I failed you so completely. Not because I want you to forgive me, but because I need to be better. For myself. That was different. Not asking for forgiveness. Not demanding I fix things. Just acknowledging his failures and committing to change. I typed a response, then deleted it. Typed another. Deleted it. Finally, I wrote, I'm glad you're getting help. That's good. For what it's worth, I hope you find what you're looking for. I didn't say I forgave him. I didn't say we could rebuild. I just acknowledged his effort and wished him well. It was all I had to give right now. Maybe it would be all I ever had to give. Or maybe, years from now, there would be room for more. But that was future Linda's decision. Present Linda had other things to do. I'd signed up for a painting class at the community center, started volunteering at the library, joined a book club with women my age who had their own stories of survival and reinvention. I was building a life that belonged to me, not to who I thought I should be or who others needed me to be. That evening, I made dinner for one. Not sadly, not lonely, just peacefully. I ate on my back porch, watching the sun set over my small garden. The tomatoes were almost ready to harvest. Harold would have been proud of them. I chose myself, I told him wherever he was. Like you said I should. It hurts, but it also feels right. The last rays of sun caught the blue coffee mug sitting on the porch railing next to me. Still chipped, still imperfect, still full of character, just like Harold always said, just like me. I'd been broken by what my son and his wife had done. But broken things could be mended. Sometimes the cracks became part of the beauty, proof that you'd survived something that tried to destroy you. My phone buzzed one more time. Joan from next door. Book club tomorrow night at my place. 7 p.m. Bring wine. We're discussing books about women who rebuild their lives. Thought you might have some insights to share. I smiled and texted back. I'll be there. This was my life now. Small and quiet and completely my own. No one to answer to, no one to please, no one's approval to earn. Just me, my garden, my new friends, and the future I was building one small choice at a time. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.